Deir Yassin, which is on the outskirts of Jerusalem, was a quiet village in which there was no resistance activity. There was even some cooperation with the Jewish agencies. The Jewish agency had transformed itself in May 1948 into the new Israeli government. On April 9, 1948, the Irgun nearly wiped out the entire population of Deir Yassin. The Irgun soldiers arrived in the village and announced that the residents had 15 minutes to leave. Then the attack began. The Zionist soldiers blew up homes with their inhabitants still inside, fired at will and at close range, and committed other types of atrocities. When it was over, more than 200 were dead. Many of the women in the village were raped before being killed. Ilan Pappé, in his book The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, gives the gruesome details of these atrocities. As you can see here, a 11-year-old Deir Yassin survivor gives an account describing the horrors committed by the Zionists. The Irgun paraded the few Palestinian survivors through the streets of Jerusalem, where they were jeered and spit on. With Deir Yassin, Plan Dalet had been raised to a new level of brutality. The massacre in Deir Yassin, Tantura and other villages were meant as warning to all Palestinians. While the Jewish agency officially condemned the Deir Yassin massacre in words, on the same day it brought the Irgun into the joint command of the military with the Haganah. 12 days after the Deir Yassin massacre, on April 21, 1948, the joined Irgun Haganah forces launched a lethal attack on the Palestinian areas of Haifa. They rolled out barrel bombs filled with gasoline and dynamite down narrow alleys in the heavily populated city. Within a week, similar terror attacks led 77,000 of the 80,000 Palestinians to flee the city of Jaffa. By May 15, 1948, when Israel's independence was proclaimed, 300,000 Palestinians were living and dying in abominable conditions of exile in Lebanon, Gaza, Syria and Jordan Valley. By the end of the year, the number of dispossessed Palestinians had grown to over 750,000. Without the tactic of massacre, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine would not have been possible. Without massacres, the Israeli that its creators had envisioned could not have come into being. None of the Palestinians who were driven out were allowed to return to their homes, despite the UN Resolution 194, which was passed in December 1948. The resolution states unequivocally that all refugees must be allowed back and compensated for any damages suffered. To justify this illegal refusal, the Israeli authorities claimed that the refugees had left voluntarily. This was another of Israel's contradictory lie, because if Palestine was truly a land without people, as they had earlier claimed, why would anyone have to leave? The people of Palestine and the entire Arab world remember the year 1948 as Al-Nakba, the catastrophe. The Palestinian historian Walid Khalidi wrote about Al-Nakba and its physical remnants today in his book All That Remains. After the 1948 war, the remaining 22% of the Palestine was divided. Jordan took the West Bank, Gaza came under Egyptian administration. More than 750,000 Palestinians were dispossessed of their farms, shops and homes and forced into concentration camps. The Palestinians had nearly disappeared. In the United States press, they lost all nationality, becoming only refugees. The process of disappearing the Palestinians was very important for Israel. The imperialist powers were all being confronted by national liberation struggles in Asia, Africa, Latin America and the Middle East. Under these circumstances, the Israeli leaders and their US counterparts did not want Israel to be perceived as a colonial settler state. Their way was simply to proclaim that Palestine had been an empty, barren land. This fiction appeared as the dominant narrative in the most United States media outlets. Israeli soldiers, including Ben-Gurion, were still not satisfied with their new state. Parts of the neighboring Lebanon, Egypt and Syria were also in the Zionist leaders' expansionist dreams. The leaders of the new Israel state did not rely on dreams to fulfill their aspirations. No sooner did Israel come into being than Ben-Gurion and his partners began looking for a new war. They were ready for a second round of battle to realize their goals. A key figure in Israel's aggressive policy was the war criminal and future Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. Sharon has a half-century-long bloody trail of massacres in his hands. Sharon and his peoples always hid their mass murders behind the pretext of retaliation. This soon became Israel's unnamed policy when it would employ mass violence or provoke a war with its hostile neighbors. In the first year after their expulsion, Palestinians frequently crossed the illegal and artificial border established by the Zionist state, usually to return to their stolen lands and homes. Most often, this happened during the planting and harvesting seasons. Smaller numbers returned as groups of fighters seeking to continue the struggle. The Israeli Defense Force orders were to kill any infiltrators, including those who were unarmed. In response to any attack, the Israeli army would often carry out large-scale attacks and massacres. The aim was not only to punish. Retaliation really meant provocation. The intent was to get Jordan or Egypt to react militarily to the massacres, which could then be used by Israel as a pretext for a new war of conquest. Israeli writer Benny Morris explains this in his books Righteous Victims. Major Ariel Sharon was then the favorite officer of Israel General Moshe Dayan. He later became the defense minister and was a major proponent of the retaliation policy. Israel and its backers in the United States have continued to make use of the retaliation doctrine even now. The word retaliation implies the act of self-defense. When Israel launches devastating assaults on the Palestinians or any other country or people, the corporate media and politicians universally describe them as retaliation. There is nothing new about this kind of propaganda. The oppressors are always magically transformed into victims and the oppressed into the aggressors. They turned the true narrative of history upside down. The Israeli government continued its policy of provocation cloaked as retaliation, which led up to the 1956 Suez War against Egypt. In that war, Israel made a temporary alliance with the British and French imperialists. They temporarily conquered the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula.